So I know there's some more people out there as they're slowly coming in, but I want to make sure I'm starting on time because that way I don't go over time. So welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I'd really love to just open in prayer, and then we'll kind of get the program going. So, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine that we get to enjoy. Thank you for safe travels for everyone coming in, and we pray for safe travels as everyone heads home. We just pray that you bless this time together as we spend time as a family and a community. Bless this time of learning, and bless all the presenters and all the words that they have to say as well. So thank you, Lord. Amen. So welcome, everybody. I'm super pumped that you're here. I'm just going to grab a mug of water a second. Thank you. So I'm really excited that you guys are all here. I just kind of wanted to start by sharing our vision with our homestead co-op, homestead family. Like, I don't really know what this is, this time that we're spending together, but the intent is not really to help everyone develop how to be completely self-sufficient and to be a silo on their own. The idea is that we're building a community, that we're sharing our knowledge and our skills. We don't want anyone coming with that feeling of fear and, I need to learn these things to survive, but more so to come from a place of hope and love and, just supporting each other. So our goal is to create a community of people that have knowledge, skills, and the desire to collaborate while we support one another. So as we develop new skills, we actually become less dependent on supply chains, the government, and just, the norms. And we start to depend more on each other and on our community. So I'm so excited that you're here building your community. And we like I said, I don't want you learning skills out of fear, but out of like a joy to learn and to pass these skills on to the next generation, to build up our skills so we can pass that to our kids and to our grandkids and just have this really beautiful, knowledgeable community. So, the end goal is not necessarily to learn how to do all of the skills, because that's a lot and overwhelming, and we're going to have, over the next year, we're going to have a lot of different presenters come in. So you're not going to master all of these skills, but just kind of learning the basics and then picking maybe one or two skills to master and then to teach. So I'm really excited and honored that you guys are here today. So today, if you guys were here last time, our structure is a little bit different. You guys can see there's mics in the aisles. We are recording a little bit different. I did all the edits for our last videos to put them up on YouTube, and the audio was not ideal. So what we did is that we're going to do our presentations, and then we're going to have a question and answer time. And then I'm going to have, if you have a question, I know it's a little inconvenient, I'm going to get you to come and speak into the mic. That way, when we upload our recording, we can actually hear the questions and not just the answers. So that just helps us to have a better quality for the people who couldn't come today. So I know it's a little inconvenient for you guys who did show up, but it really helps us for our recording for other people. And I wanted to let you know as well, we do have free will offering boxes at the connection booth. So if you so feel called to donate, feel free. There's absolutely no obligation, but it just helps us to continue to provide these free trainings for everybody. So, all right. Today I get to talk to you guys a little bit. We're going to kind of recap the seedling talk we did last month. And we're gonna keep talking seedlings, and then we're gonna talk about transplanting as well. And I'm gonna talk about winter sowing. So I love gardening. I don't know how many of you guys love to garden. You either love it or hate it. So I'm gonna try really hard not to get dirty, but we do have some dirt today. So I'm just really excited that I get to share this with you, and hopefully get to hear some of your knowledge as well. So. Quick recap from last month is we talked about what you need for seedlings, and Ange Zondervan did an amazing job at covering all the bases. But we're going to just kind of touch on a couple other things, because over the last month, lots of people have come up and talked to us. So just kind of touch on the things that people that had questions or were interested in learning more about. So the first thing we're going to talk about with seedlings is soil. Because the basics, what you need for your seedlings when you're starting them is like a container to put it in, your soil, grow lights if you're starting them inside, obviously seeds, and ventilation. So Ange did a great job of going through that. If you guys weren't here last month, the recording of that is on YouTube, so you can check it out. So I'm going to start by sharing what I've been using for my base for my seedlings. It's a really big bag, sorry. So this is just a Pro Mix. This is an organic Pro Mix. And I have our ingredients somewhere here. Oh, here. So it's peat moss, peat humus, cocoa fiber, perlite, limestone, organic fertilizer. So does anyone know what wasn't in there? I can't hear anyone. So dirt, like soil from the ground. So, and that's actually what you don't want. So when you're starting your seedlings, you don't want to go into your garden and grab dirt, probably mostly because there's microorganisms in there that you don't want. But this is a really light and fluffy mixture. I do have some in the bowl here. I'll be showing you a little bit more afterwards. It's really light and fluffy, and it's perfect for seedlings to help when you put your seeds in and to help it grow really well. So I always have a big bowl. You can use whatever container, it doesn't have to be Tupperware. It's just what I had in my kitchen. So you're gonna put your soil in there and then add a little bit of water. Not a lot. And mix it around. And I normally do this with my hands, but I'm too far from a sink, so I'm just gonna mix it with this. And then let it sit for a few minutes. And that you're just wanting the mixture itself to hydrate a little bit, because if you have a really dry mixture and then you put your seeds in it and then go to water it, it won't absorb and it'll just kind of run all over and it'll pull your seeds away. So we're just gonna let that sit for a couple minutes and absorb. So, and while we're doing that, while it's sitting, we had a couple videos that we're gonna show. Jennifer J., who was here last month, wasn't able to come this month, but she was gracious enough to quickly record a little bit about her setup. And we're gonna get Ryan to put the video on because my clicker's not working. So we'll just watch this for a second.
This is my seeding chamber. It's in the basement, so I've done some covering to keep it insulated. This is just a padded tablecloth that I folded over, and I can just put it on the top shelf when I need to get in there. Inside, the walls are just corrugated cardboard, and this has a bit of a, I'm not going to say waterproof, but more of a plastic coating than just plain cardboard. Those came from boxes out of a delivery that we had once, and I've just surrounded the baker's rack, is all it is, with just something to try and keep the heat in. My top shelf is where I start my seedlings. Right now there's the onions, and if you can see, there is something missing from that. Labels. Do not forget your labels. But I only have one thing in here right now, so hopefully I don't forget to label it later on. I just didn't have anything to label it. Alright. So I've got this dome on it that will help keep the moisture in, because right now underneath is a heating pad. So here's another one similar to what's under there. The heating pad will heat the soil and create moisture. The roots need heat in order to germinate. Because it's just onions, I actually have a heating pad that has a thermometer. And so I don't have the thermometer set very high, just enough to keep the chill off of it from the basement. So this one's my seeding chamber, where I start the seedlings as much as possible because it is the shortest distance. I can raise this if I needed it to be closer to the light. Then in the second one, I have a bit more height difference between the shelves, and again, I just have this resting here for now. I don't necessarily need it, depends on what's in there, but I do have a fan. Because once they've sprouted, the plastic will come off, they'll come in here, and the fan will help strengthen the plants. And then again, I have another shelf that I can either once the seedlings get super tall, or put boxes to raise them up closer to the lamp or lower the lamp, whichever I need to do depending on what I have closer to the end of the starting season. Again, another fan that will be hooked up once there's plants in there. One thing I do want to show you is my heating mat does have, like I said, the thermometer. So right now the soil, because I just did it, is only 15.5 degrees. So I've got it set for about 18 degrees, so it'll slowly warm up to 18 and then turn off until just works like a thermostat. I've got everything on a timer that I will set the lights for 16 hours, especially once they get seeded. Right now they don't necessarily need the light, and then when I'm done with it, I can cover it up and try and keep some of the warmth that comes from the lights, comes from the heating pad, in that area, and keeps the chill of the basement off of it.
Perfect. And we can go right into the next one if that works. Hello, I'm just here to show you my seedling setup. So I have my setup in our spare room because this year that is where I have space for it. I do have a fan running. It's an oscillating fan, so it moves, just to make sure there's lots of air movement so that we don't have too damp a soil and get mold, and just have some great air movement. So far what I have planted so far, these are my onion seeds. And I do, if you can see here, I know you might not be able to read it. Those are 6 varieties of onions I've started. Some have done a lot better than others. I think some of my packages were older, and you can definitely see which ones were doing better. So I am going to be planting a little bit more, but this is what I have. And they just have, I think I just got these lights off Amazon, and you can see they're nice and close. This is one of those little greenhouses. I'm just using it for shelving. Underneath, actually my son started some tropicals, so these are, I think they're pomegranate, and he's done some lemon, but the lemon haven't come up yet. And you can see they're nice and close to the light, so that they're getting as much light as possible. And then I have another greenhouse, and I'm just gonna zip it open here. So I haven't started much. It's a little early in the season. I will be doing tomatoes and peppers soon. But what I have started are some brassicas. So cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, kale, and I do have it labeled along the side there so I know what each row is. And then I have some grow lights that I got from Princess Auto, and you'll notice this one is in a grow tent. Sorry, the lighting is awful because it's so bright in the tent, everything else looks dark. But I like to use a simple grow tent because of, if you can see, it's all reflective on the inside. So once I have it all closed up, all the light that doesn't come right onto the plants kind of just dissipates. So I want that light to get reflected back onto the plants. You can see my seedlings, they're a little bit dry, but that's okay. I haven't watered them yet today. And I wasn't sure how old my seed was. So if you can see, I have multiple plants coming up in each little cell there. And I can either pot that up into separate pots, or I can pull them out and thin them. I don't love to get rid of seedlings if I don't have to. And then here is my herbs. I have different herbs starting. I think the only thing that's actually coming up is the thyme. And these are just ones that need to get started really early. So I just planted these, maybe a week ago, so they still have some time to sprout. And I do have a little fan down here. I don't have it plugged in yet. I don't really need it plugged in yet. But I'll get that running once I get my tomatoes and peppers sprouted. So that's my setup. It's fairly simple, but it definitely gets the job done. So I just really wanted to share with you the setups that some of us are using. They're really, really simple. Both of us had just a wire rack with lights you can get at, I got mine at Princess Auto and Amazon. I'm pretty sure Jen got hers on Amazon too, I'm not sure. So I just wanted to show you that it can be a really simple setup. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I had invested in a little grow tent because last year it was in my dining room and my family did not appreciate like the blinding light every time we ate. So that's why I had purchased that. I don't actually need it, but it's super handy. Now that I have it, I'll use it. It kind of contains it a little bit. And everything I started there was kind of a cool weather crops, so it doesn't really need a lot of heat. It can be open. I have a fan blowing. It's essentially blowing cold air on it. And then I didn't note, but my lights are all either on zip ties that I can tighten to lift up as they grow, or on like a little pulley system. But you can keep it really, really basic. So that was one of the questions, like, how do you get your seedlings set up? So what I have here is, this is kind of the cell that I had used in the video. So, and you don't really need those, but the tray is handy. You can get these at like Canadian Tire or all over the place. And then I got these at Lee Valley. But if you're wanting to do something like really efficiently, these ones you can buy, I think, like a 15 pack at the dollar store for less than $2. So they're great for starting things in. They're a little bit bigger, so you don't have to pot up as quickly, and we'll talk about potting up. But there's different options. And then your dome just to put on top to keep the moisture in. Pretty simple setup. The only thing, like, you could have this in your kitchen. The only thing I would say is you really do need a grow light, because putting it in your window is just not going to be enough light. Once it sprouts, it definitely needs more. Okay, so we're going to move over here to the potting mix, and I'm just going to show you. I think we have a camera of getting it a little closer so you can see. I'm going to share a little bit about winter sowing. Winter sowing is kind of something you can do all the way back. Like, we could have started in December, and you can do it all the way kind of till March. So I just wanted to show you how, if you don't have an inside setup, you can actually still start plants outdoors, actually, which is kind of handy, so it's not in your way. So this is just, I got to take the seeds out so I don't make a mess. This is just a container. I can't even think of what kind of container it is. You can get them. This is a bit of a thicker one. It is food grade. I don't necessarily know that matters when you're doing this, but I have some holes drilled in the bottom, and you can see I cut it open, so you can flip it open, and then when you're all done, you're going to tape it shut. So, but you don't need the cap. So for winter sowing, this is great because you can put it outside, get your seeds in here, and just put it out and kind of ignore it for now. It's going to help your seeds climatize to your climate. You don't have to really baby it. You want to check it once in a while to make sure the dirt isn't like dried out. But it does have the open lid, so liquid, like if it's raining or snowing, it can get in there, and that's good for it. So then you're just going to take your pre-moistened soil. Because it's not actually dirt, you want to get some moisture in there to kind of get absorbing already, so that once your seeds are going, they're not going to dry out and they're not going to wash away. So I feel like there was probably an easier way to do this, but I'm trying really hard not to get super dirty. When I do it at home, I just grab the vacuum before I start and assume I'm going to have a big mess to clean up. There we go. Okay, so we're going to put some dirt in. You don't necessarily need that much. You just kind of want to make sure it's broken up. I'm going to get dirty anyways. That's why I brought a cloth. Okay, so today I am going to do Brussels sprouts. It's one of the only breasts because I didn't do in my greenhouse already. So, and it's a really cold hardy plant, so it's going to do really good. So when you put it outside and your seeds freeze, that's kind of a normal process for seeds. Like, if you think about, if we didn't mess around with plants at all, they're going to grow, they're going to drop their seeds, and then they're going to freeze in the winter, and then they're going to start again in the spring. So this is a really normal process for them. And you can do as much or as little as you want. You can thin them afterwards or throw them all in. So these are just like little balls. And then I'm going to sprinkle it kind of all over. I know I'll have these are newer seeds. That was a lot of seeds. That was probably like 2 or 3 times more than I needed, but that's okay. So you can put lots in there and then kind of pull them apart. There are some plants that don't like you to mess with their roots, in which case I would say plant them a little bit further. But for anything from the brassica family, which is like kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, all those kind of things, and cabbage, they're pretty good. Onions are really good. Actually, the rougher you are with onions, the better. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more dirt and sprinkle it on top. Hopefully you can see that. So then my seeds are pretty much just covered. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it down, and then you're going to tape it shut. And then the really important part, label what it is. Because I know right now what this is, but when I do 10 of these and then put them all outside, I have no idea what one's what. Even, honestly, even when they come up, like if you've done Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower, they look really similar. So I'm gonna just do Brussels sprouts. Awesome. All right, so then I'm gonna tape that later. I didn't take tape up with me. So then you're just gonna tape that shut, and then you're gonna put it outside. And you wanna put it somewhere where it's not gonna get knocked over, but you don't actually wanna protect it a whole lot. You kinda want it out, like if you wanna put it in your garden, if you have a place in your garden or in your backyard where it's gonna get snowed on, it's gonna get rained on, that's kind of what you wanna do. You don't kinda wanna tuck it away, because it really needs to climatize to where you want it. And then it's its own little mini greenhouse. So it's gonna drain if there's too much water. The only thing you wanna do is kind of check it every once in a while to see if you need to add a little bit of water, because you don't want it to dry out. So, but it's that simple. That's how easy it is for you to start your own little greenhouse without having any other supplies. And then I just asked my daughter where she worked if she would grab this for me, but you can ask family and friends and just get whatever container. And I've seen people who do solo cups. I really love these for planting. And then you just drill a couple holes in the bottom and you fill like a Tupperware container, or not Tupperware, like a big tote. Put it all in the bottom of your tote and just drill some holes in the top of your tote. And then you can have all individual ones. Just make sure you label them. I know we keep saying label them, but it's really, really true. If you have anything not labeled, give it 2 days and you will have no idea what's in there. So, yeah, if that, I know. So, and it's really important to so I just brought a couple seeds along. These are all the seeds that I'm going to be planting next. These are all my peppers, and I can see right off the top, I have about 7 varieties of peppers that I'm going to plant. So I like to know that when I'm putting it in my garden. I like to know what color it is, because I kind of like to plant accordingly. But I want to know if I'm planting a sweet pepper or a hot pepper, just, details when you go to pick them. You'd know once they're ready, but anyways, that's just kind of reminder, label. So yeah, I want to make sure. So you can there's a couple different kinds of winter sowing. So there's like an early winter sowing, which is like December. And then like when you have like 5 to 6 months before your last frost. And I do have, in the handouts I do have a list of your last, or your planting days and your last frost day, so that you guys can kind of I'm thinking about, just starting tomatoes this year, but when do I start that? So it kind of gives you an idea of when to start it. It's not hard and fast. I try and plant as little as possible in my greenhouses. Anything I can plant in the ground will do better than anything you plant in your greenhouse. It'll just climatize better. And then there's late winter, so that's 1 or 2 months before the last frost. So that's like March, April, because we're not going to be planting things until May. Around here, we're zone 6. It's like May 2-4 is when we kind of think that's when we're going to put stuff in our garden. But don't go by that. Like, actually look at the weather network, because there's nothing worse than like planting out all your stuff in the garden and then getting a frost, because you've put so much time and effort into that. So yeah, I just want to make sure. So that's winter sowing. So if you guys do have any questions, just write them down and we'll get them afterwards. But I want to talk about transplanting and potting up. Because once you start your seedlings, that's awesome. And if you start your seedlings in something like this, that's a really small space. Now, I do love these. I don't know if you can see through it. There's holes right in the bottom. So you can actually just take a pencil or something and pop it up and pull it out. But if you are planting like a pepper or a tomato, it will die before planting it outside if you don't pot it up. They need to keep growing. So it kind of depends, potting up kind of depends on what plant you have. So if you're going to start with a little cell like that, potting up to something like this is great. And I know there's a potting up of tomatoes photo that hopefully Ryan can put up. And that one, it's just kind of showing you like the different sizes involved in, there you go. So like how different ways you're going to plant up. So you're going to start small and you're going to go bigger. And for most things, you'll only have to plant it 1 or 2 times, hopefully like only pot it up once. Tomatoes are really the exception. Tomatoes really, really grow. And you don't want your plants to get root bound. And you can see the one photo up there where it's like a mat of white. You want your roots to keep growing healthy. If they start spinning around in your pot, or like if there's always generally holes in the bottom, if it's coming out the holes, you know it's time to pot it up. And then you just want to, whatever size pot it's in, pick one that's about double that size. And I didn't bring any big ones. But if you're looking for a really cheap option, I just pick these up at the dollar store. And honestly, you can buy them at, I think, every grocery store. So what I do, and I don't think I have one that I did it to, I just take the cup and I take a pair of scissors and I just snip it 3 or 4 times along the bottom so there's drainage. And then I put my plant in. Because it's deeper, you're going to put some soil in there first. Then you're going to carefully move your plant in. If it's root bound, so if it's where it's just a mass of white roots, you might want to loosen those roots up a little bit. You want to be careful that you're not breaking it or disturbing the plant too much. But especially for tomatoes, which is what I find, like most people are starting tomatoes and peppers in their house. So if you're starting tomatoes and it's in even a pot like this or smaller, you're going to want to go double that size, put some soil in, break your root ball up a little bit, carefully put it in, and then put some soil around it. Make sure it's nice and sturdy. Tomatoes and like a lot of the nightshades and brassicas can handle it. You can actually plant them deep and cover the stem. So if you've ever seen a tomato stem, and I don't know if you can really see it in this, I don't think the pictures are clear enough. The stem of a tomato has like little white hairs on it. And every one of those hairs is actually a root. So if your light was too high or your conditions weren't really great and you have like this really long, lanky tomato plant, you can actually plant it up to the first 2 leaves. So you can put it in something nice and deep and then cover it with soil, and then all those little hairs will turn into roots and just make it stronger for when you plant it out into the garden. So I do suggest that. Some plants don't like that. So a quick Google search will help you, because I don't know what plants you guys are starting, but if you take a plant that doesn't like that and you plant it really deep and then its stem is covered, you can get stem rot, and it'll actually just, it's exactly what that sounds like. It's going to rot in the dirt and it's just going to die. So you want to make sure if you're planting it deep, you know what one you're planting. But then tomato, you're going to put it in and give it probably a week or 2. You want to make sure you keep raising your light, but keep it close enough so it's not stretching. It's kind of like a fine dance. You want it high enough so that it's not touching, but low enough that it's not reaching for it. And then if you need to pot up a couple more times, that's completely okay. So, and hopefully you don't have to plant or pot up too many times before you start hardening off. So we had a lot of questions last time about hardening off. And I did do a little printout in your, or like description in your printout, because it's really important if you're gonna take all the time and effort to grow these plants, and then you're like, oh, we're past the last frost date, this is awesome, we're good to go, and then you take all of your seedlings and you plant them out in the garden and then everything dies. Like, that's really disappointing. So it's really important to harden them off. Some people say like 4 days, some people say 2 weeks, so you kind of wanna, I personally do it for about a week. It's extremely annoying, I'm just gonna say. Like, for myself, I normally have like 8 to 10 of these like trays, and depending on how big I've potted up, it could even be more. And potting up is handy because you don't want to have like a really big pot and one little plant in there. You want to kind of build your way up there, but then you're going to need to carry them outside every day and then carry them back in. So it is inconvenient, but it's worth it to harden them off. So you want to start by beginning to expose them to outdoor conditions. So start, I suggest, if there's a cloudy day, do that and do it in the afternoon. Because despite what it seems like when you have a grow light that close to your plant, even the cloudiest day the plant will get more from that than it will from a grow light. So if you take out your plant at noon and you're like, well, I'll just leave it out for an hour, it will probably scorch. So you really want to start introducing natural light slowly. So start in the afternoon, take it out for about an hour, and then bring it back in. I feel like you super have to baby them, but it's true. So bring it back in, and then the next day bring it out and leave it out, for 2 or 3 hours, preferably in a shady spot. I know you think it really, really wants sunshine. That's way too much sun for it. So put it in a shady spot, couple hours, bring it back in. The next day, do it again, but maybe leave it out for 6 hours and then bring it back in. And then start bringing it out early in the day when the sun is stronger, when those rays are a lot stronger. And then at about day 6, try leaving it out overnight. Definitely check the weather network and make sure it's not going to freeze. Probably you don't want to go under like 10 degrees at night because they're just not used to that. But if you're going to put them in the garden, they're going to have to get used to that. And then maybe on day 7 or 8 or 9, depending on the weather network, what it's telling you. Not that I'm telling you to trust the weather network. Just saying, gives you an idea of what to do. Then you can start looking at planting it out. And if you can do it on a couple cloudy days, that is best. If you know there's going to be like, if you get to day 6 and then it's like 3 days of 25 degrees and full sun, maybe just keep hardening them off for a couple more days before you put them out there. And then you're going to put them in and water them well. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about putting it into the actual garden. I think in April, we're going to be doing a lot more on like prepping your garden and planting your garden. So, and quick tip, make sure wherever you're putting your plants is safe for them. So you don't want them to get run over by your animals. I do this every year because I put it on my deck and my dogs run over them. And you want to make sure like snails and slugs can't reach them either. Like try and keep the pests, and like spiders, because you're bringing it back into your house. That's gross. So just my thought. So I wanted to note too, because I know that not everybody can start their seeds, but if you can, we do have a seedling exchange sign up, and I have that on the connection booth, where if you're wanting to grow a couple extra seedlings for people who aren't able to grow them, you can actually sign up back there. I've kind of put like the common ones. If there's something that you want to grow that's special, you can write it down too. But I sign up for a particular one, and I kind of limited it to like 5 people per one item, just so that we don't have 20 of one and one of another. So. And then in the handout as well, I've put all your last frost dates and about what kind of things you would plant then, and some places where you can purchase seeds. Hopefully you've purchased your seeds already if you are starting, because You might not get them all in time, but you can still do that. Oh, and I wanted to share, if you don't want to label with stickers, I'm pretty sure I picked these up at the dollar store last year. It's like 16 plastic garden markers with a Sharpie in it. Super duper handy because I had them in all my pots to tell me what they were. And then when I put it in the garden, I just pulled this out and put that in the garden so I knew what it was. And then at the end of the season, I just collect them all, clean them, disinfect them, and I can use them again. They were actually pretty hardy. I've used a whole bunch of different kinds of markers. The only one I really suggest you don't use is popsicle sticks. I know they're cheap and easy, but they mold really easy because they're a natural fiber, and you definitely don't want mold around your seedlings. So yes, that is pretty much all I wanted to cover for seedlings, transplants, and winter sowing. So if you guys have any questions at all, I have no idea what time I'm at right now. Oh, we're still good. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. So if you guys have questions, you can come up to the mic and say them. I know it's easy to sit down, but for recording purposes, please come to the mic and say it. So come on up. I know I'm making everybody walk. If I have to stand up here, so do you.
Okay, for when you're potting up your plants, that's obviously going to take up a lot of your room. Is there ever a time when you can use windows, or like when they get bigger, or no?
If it's for a really short time, but not really. Most of our glass windows don't actually let the UV rays come through. So you're going to find that your plants are going to get really leggy because they're going to be reaching, and there's nothing there for them. So if you can keep them under grow lights, even around grow lights, that's the best way to do it.
Okay. And then can you use old pots? I remember you talked about there might be problems with disease or something.
Yeah, so you can definitely use pots. Like all of these I've used before. Okay. Just wash them. Some people don't care. That's 100% personal preference. I just put either I'll fill my sink a little hydrogen peroxide or like a little bit of bleach. I don't like bleach, but like something just to kind of kill if there's any bacteria. Okay. But I reuse my pots all the time.
Okay. I'm a recycling truck driver, so I might just grab some pots and bring them into church.
There's always, in the spring, there's always pots at the side of the road. Yeah. Awesome.
When you were talking about the setup for the seedlings,
yeah.
We didn't talk about water. How often do we have to water them? How saturated should the watering be on a daily basis, weekly basis?
Okay, that's a great question. So I check on my seedlings every day, and when I first plant, I'm going to top water because there's no roots to bottom water. So I should have brought it. I have like a spray thing that I can spray the plants down with.
Actually, I saw it on the picture.
Oh yeah, it was sitting on the floor, and I meant to talk about it, and I didn't. So it's just like a pump thing. You can get like a little spray bottle from the dollar store, but it gets really old doing this. Like it takes forever. So yeah, so you're going to want to plant them, water them, and then you want to keep the soil moist but not wet until they germinate. And then as soon as you can, it's better to bottom water. So once the plant sprouts and you know that they have roots, it's good to bottom water. Sometimes I'll still spray the tops a little bit, but that's like one of the reasons I have that oscillating fan going is to make sure that it dries out completely. It makes the roots go lower, and it generally makes it stronger. But if you overwater, so I try and water like every other day. If you overwater, you really run the risk of mold and mildew, and that'll just kill your seeds.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How deep should I plant my seeds? Is it fine just sprinkling the dirt over top of them, or like do you have to press them down a certain distance into the dirt?
It kind of depends on the size of the seed, quite honestly. So for these ones, like they were those tiny little balls, I sprinkle it on, and I just sprinkle a little dirt over top. If it's a bigger seed, the general rule of thumb is whatever size the seed is, plant it twice as deep. But I find a lot of those seeds are going into the garden. I'm not necessarily starting them. So you don't want to go too deep, and you want to make sure your potting soil is nice and light so that it can kind of break its way through, and then the roots can go deeply. But it doesn't need to be very deep at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christine, do you ever do the green salad bowl mixture, and can you have that all year round?
Yeah,
You know, where they put all the veggies and you put them in your kitchen and you just clip them, and
yeah.
do you
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, you definitely can do that. You can do it,
But now, like all year?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother in the summer because you do it outside in the
Right.
summer. But yeah, so there's a couple ways to do that. You can do that with a potting mix, and you can do that with a coconut core mix, which is like a compressed block of ground coconut shell. And then when you add water, it gets really big. You can just put that in the bottom of a tray, and then put your seeds in that, and then let it sprout. So it's like sprouting seeds. And that would probably be better for sprouting seeds. If you're wanting to do an actual lettuce, you're probably going to want something that has a little bit of nutrients in it. This Pro Mix, it has like an organic mixture in it, so it does have nutrients in it. If you're having just a plain potting mix, you'll get it to sprout, but it probably won't be enough to give it, like, to make a whole head of lettuce. Does that make sense? Okay. Perfect. But yes, you can do that as long as you have grow lights.
Someone used LED lights. Are they similar to grow lights?
Yeah, so my grow lights are all LED lights. So as long as they have the right spectrum, most lights do. Like if you're just using them to sprout your seeds, like you're not growing something under them, most lights, like shop lights and all that, will be good. If you want, I like to have the grow lights because I want my seeds to do well, and some of them, like my onions, they're under them for 12 weeks. So,
How
but
about Miracle Grow? Do you use that?
I personally do not.
Okay.
I do, everything that I try and do is all organic, so, but lots of people use Miracle Grow soil. So I think Miracle Grow might even have an organic line. I don't actually know that.
My question to you is, if you were used to use a hoop house or a greenhouse with glass,
Yep.
can you grow plants in there and produce a fruit off them? Or is it better just to have them in direct sunlight?
Yes, you would, by the time that they would fruit, it would be in the summer, and then I would have them uncovered.
Okay.
But yeah, as long as the sunlight can get at them, it'll need the full sun rays to fruit. Most things will grow with regular light, but they need the sunlight to fruit.
So in a glass one, the sun rays coming through there, they're not impeded. They can actually reach the plant and produce the fruit, like you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. As long as it's not like treated glass that doesn't let the UV,
Okay. Yeah.
it's generally not, but. Okay. We'll do one more question, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll have a question answer time at the back, or at the end too.
I'm wondering about your Brussels sprouts. Do you keep them in there the entire time until it's time to go into the garden? And what other plants can you put in there? Which ones are hardy enough to put outside?
Great question. So these, you saw how many seeds I put in there. It was ridiculous, way too many. That many plants isn't gonna grow in here. So I'm gonna thin it out or pull some out and replant them. And they can be in there until they go in the garden. You will have to come and, as it gets warmer, actually open it up and let it breathe a little bit and close it up at night, because it will get really hot in there. But there's a ton of plants you can do. Pretty much anything from the brassica family. You can probably do quite a bit. Some will do better than others. Lots of herbs and flowers, perennials, that kind of stuff. I know a lot of people do, like they start their flower gardens this way. You can try anything. Some of them that are going to be more tender, like I don't know that I would do tomato and peppers. I know people have.
Onions?
Yeah, oh, definitely onions. Yeah, onions and leek and anything from that family will definitely work, for sure. So, and then when you have it, you kind of get in there, go underneath and carefully pull it out. So, awesome. So thanks for the great questions. If you guys have more questions, just write them down. At the end of the third session, we'll have a question and answer period, but I want to make sure I honor our timeline. So we're going to have a quick break. We'll give you like 15 minutes or so, and then we'll come back at 10:30, and we will be learning all about fruit trees. So thanks, guys.